This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Mattio Communications.
Hello, my fellow people of the plant. Let's talk for a moment about brand awareness in the cannabis space. The industry is obviously becoming more crowded as it matures. So how do you effectively break through the noise? We all know that cannabis marketing has restrictions that make our jobs more difficult. But thankfully, the kick-ass PR and marketing professionals at Mattio Communications know how to elevate your narrative while staying compliant. Their New York and LA-based teams have the connections and powerful storytelling abilities you need to propel your brand onto the national stage. Mattio refuses to let your bold innovations and ambitious breakthroughs fall through the cracks. They'll get your company in front of your most prized audiences via their various specialties, which include PR, social media, investor relations, and SEO. Mattio shares your vision of normalizing cannabis for the greater good of society. They proudly partner with businesses across the industry, from investors and ancillary companies to large MSOs and local brands. No matter your business goals, Mattio is here to help. Email them today at info@mattio.com. That's INFO @MATTIO.com, or visit their website at mattio.com to get your company the recognition it deserves. Hello, my fellow people of the plant. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast, your favorite podcast that includes industry-facing conversations with the industry's leading experts that aim to educate and inform the public regarding the plant's endless benefits. My guest today is Andreas Neumann. He's the Chief Creative Director at Jushi Holdings. Dre, thanks for making time for me today. How you doing?
Hey man, good to see you. Good to see you, not only to hear you.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, we made it happen. You're here today, and I'm really excited because, looking at your background and all the awesome things that you've done, within advertising, branding, technology, photography, it's all kind of been, it seems like, a culmination to where you're at now with Jushi and
Yeah.
all the great things that you're doing there. So before we jump into your role and kind of what you envision for the company and bringing it into the digital age and creating immersive experiences for the brand, let's talk about your background. So how did you get started, man? Tell us about all these cool stories of these amazing rock artists that you've worked with and whatnot.
Yeah, this comes much, the rock comes much later. It's an interesting thing. So my origins is really from, and I can already relate it a little bit to cannabis here, because I was a born a rule breaker, right? So I grew up in Munich, in Germany, and this is a super, I mean, it's super nice, but super boring. And I was driving around my bicycle, listening to music from the radio, and I was always wondering, where do they make that music, right? Like, I mean, definitely not here where I am.
Right.
And I was always striving to escape the German small-mindedness and like inability of making anything cool in the entertainment world, beside a bunch of, like, maybe in a rock world, some Rammstein, you would know, like some
Du hast.
weird
Du
band.
hast. Yeah.
Exactly. Du hast. Exactly. So I was then finished my school, and like I was dancing around. Like every young person has the same thing, don't really know where I want to go, but I knew I had to somehow leave at some point this country. And so I jumped. I was ended up on this commercial set as an extra. I know it was a big car commercial, and they hired me. They gave me this little suit, and there was 100 other people with a suit, and they had to jump over this car. It was a Ford, or some big car commercial, British director. Like, so I went to the film studio, and this is the first time I saw, like, wow, I got the film bug there. I went there like, wow, this is where I want to be. This is fantastic.
All the lights, all the cameras, the excitement.
Yeah. All the food there. There's so much food. What do you do? Where do you get all this food from? It's like, so I was looking over the shoulders of the director, and I think, like, I have to, this is what I want to do. So I got like interned in a Munich film production company. In Munich these days, have big film studios. Actually, they did a Never Ending Story or Das Boot, and like big movies. Like they're like in Munich. It was big film, like mini Hollywood. So I got hired by some company. I make this a little bit colorful for you now, but
sure.
I promise I move faster in the rest.
No, don't apologize. We've got all kinds of time, man. Let's do
it. Exactly. Yeah. So basically, what happened is, like, I through very lucky coincidence, 2 years later, I started my own company, and this is like my own commercial production company in Munich, Germany, because I thought, oh my God, I know all these people now. I worked in this other company for 2 years. I know all the clients, and it was Procter and Gamble and Mars and big clients, right? So
Sure.
So I drove them all to the airport, and for sure I thought, if I know them all now, so why don't I have my own company? And I jumped into this with a partner. And of course, what happened is like we were busy doing our office. We set up our office in Munich, and nobody. The phone. This is the time, and this is 1990, right? So the phone didn't ring.
Oh
Phone didn't ring.
no. So you did all that work, all that investment up front. You got
Now it's
your
like, I mean, it's like
office.
it was
Yeah.
like anybody. It was anyone who declared me crazy doing that. So
Well, it's a first-time entrepreneur. I mean, that's kind of what most entrepreneurs do. They're very excited, and then when you get there, you're like, wait a second, the clients, like,
exactly.
you know, right?
So didn't nobody called. So I had this director, and exclusive, and Germany was in a position they always were hiring international directors, and we all offering the same directors, every production company, so there was no differentiation. Anyway, what happened is the phone rang, and long story short, one time the phone rang, and I put everything on one card, and there was this big agency from American agency called Gray Advertising. They called and said, we have this little film we want to do. We have this director. We want to, this a test film, and can you do it for whatever? It was $40,000 or something, which was, oh my God, so $40,000 is a lot of money. But anyway, so I said yes to it. It was a testing. They said they were going to throw it away anyway. They're never going to use it. So I said, what if they really use it? Make it so good that they're using it. I said,
Right.
it's never going to happen. So, but yeah, can I have a contract for what you would pay somebody else to do the real thing if you use the real thing? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, so I got a great contract there, like for nearly $500,000. Imagine that time. So
Wow.
and so of course, but the film, they never use those films. So I put everything on the car. I threw out, crazy as I am, everything. I shot it on 35 millimeter. Got the director, pulled every favor. I was in the commercial myself because we couldn't afford. I was the main guy. It was an aftershave commercial. I'm the guy who was taking the. So I'm the guy who gets kissed by the girl.
So you're producing, directing, and acting in the.
I didn't direct it, but I'm producing and acting in it.
Okay, gotcha.
And then what happens is this thing wins an award in the Cannes Film Festival, and is the most best tested ad for this brand ever. And of course they bought it then, and that kicked off the whole. My production company 4 years later was the third biggest in Germany, and I sold it to Gray Advertising when I was 26. And this starts my.
That's incredible. So were you, when they said we're not going to use it, it's a test, you know, and you were like, well, maybe what if it's good enough? Like what if we shoot it in a way where it will appeal to them?
Exactly.
Was that kind of your mindset going in? You're like, we're going to do this thing differently. We're going to do it kind of the way I am.
Yeah, but you know, there was so like blue-eyed in a way, like doing the right thing, but not knowing I'm doing the right thing, but by instinct. And this is something that comes later, you know, in my life always, like, and it takes me in the end to the cannabis industry, and I'm kind of made for this, you know, because it's a constant. I have in my DNA, I want to break the rules at all times. So whenever I see a rule, I have to jump over. If there's a board, something in the airport, I have to jump over it. I'm not going around the 15 things if it doesn't make any sense. So
I'm the same way, Dre. And cannabis is a perfect industry for that, right? It's like,
exactly.
You know, it pushes the envelope, obviously federally illegal, you know, states are starting to adopt more, but it sounding from what you're saying in your background, yeah, it sounds like a perfect fit for sure.
Yeah, it went very fast, you know, so that got very successful. They won all the awards, and we got very big. I bought studios, and I sold this whole company to Gray, and I had to move into Gray, like, with 26 and work with them, like, as part of the deal. And with 29, finally, I moved to England. And this was kind of my way to the, you know, like what I said before, where the music is made. Right. So my journey, England was the closest to America in Europe. And you cannot, I mean, I was thinking, okay, I've staged step by step. Let's first go to England and just get in the Anglo-Saxon way of doing business and establish myself there, and then make the jump to the US.
Smart.
And that's what I did. You know, I did at the beginning, when I moved to London, I moved to Notting Hill. I did lots of photos. I didn't know really what's the next thing we're going to do. And then I started, like, since there was a digital as well, relevant later for cannabis. There's the digital revolution happening that time, you know, where, like, really, like, traditional advertising wasn't kind of working anymore, like it did, and you needed to find new ways to promote the brands. And this is where branded entertainment was kind of born, you know. And And specifically, when you make a parallel, who was very good in brand and entertainment from the beginning was the cigarette industry, funny enough, because they could not advertise at all. Similar like cannabis, where they at some point they said no more advertising, and they were very ahead of time to find ways to put their money in events, sponsorships, and ways they could still be out there. And that inspired me to come up with ways to concepts. The early brand and entertainment concept, which was like, the brand can invest into things, IP, you call it, intellectual properties, which are communicating the same brand values as the brand, but then not necessarily you have to show the brand, but you kind of, as a brand, you get involved in it and then you grow together with it, with that piece of content. An interesting example would be, funny enough, Notting Hill. Have you seen the movie Notting Hill?
Long ago.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Imagine that movie. So when I moved to Notting Hill, my house was like, I got this whole house for like £500,000, and the movie comes out, Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, and like they all this hype about Notting Hill, and then the real estate prices jumping up from that. So this is a good example how you kind of, if like the real estate industry would have invested into like the movie knowingly, without even being shown, and then being benefit of being part of actually pushing this whole real estate price, because the movie made this little place in London famous, right?
I totally get what you're saying. It's like whether it be a trend or, like you said, an action that a movie studio takes to film at that particular location. Well, it makes sense for the realtors within that location to plug into that, because it'll elevate their brand awareness and so on, right?
Exactly. And there's like examples like Titanic, for example. After Titanic came out, DiCaprio and like Kate Winslet standing there on the front of the Titanic, right? The cruise ship industry had an incredible boost after this movie came out, right? So like it was kind of revitalized, and everybody wanted to do a cruise, and then they offered those even like this vintage cruises where you have like the whole experience like the Titanic. So this boosted the whole industry.
You know, so another thing that I think about is Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
So remember, like stores, they actually, to increase foot traffic, like say at AT&T or Sprint or whatever, they would, place the Pokemon that you could collect in their store so that people were playing, take some right inside, and I think even I saw car dealerships in the Dallas area, giving you money off your finance if you showed them your Pokemon app or whatever.
It's all like integrated. You have to find new ways to engage, like nobody wants to read anything, nobody wants to watch anything, nobody wants to look at stuff. So it's really hard to get the attention. So that time I was well positioned, and then I got like into another interesting worth mentioning project. So I did the first 360-degree dome film in the world in England. I started the studio, and then people call me for the most craziest stuff. So when there's a first in the world, they called me from Germany, like Volkswagen calls me, and we say we have this big theme park we're doing. We need somebody to do this 360-degree film, which is an experience for the Volkswagen brand, where people go in, but there's no cars shown in this film. It's just the vision of the future of Volkswagen in a dome movie.
Do you fly a drone to do that? Like, how do you capture that?
Kevin, there was not even drones around. This is now early 2000. This is probably 2000.
So how did you do that then? Even back then, like what?
Imagine it had to be 4K. So and it had to be more than 4K. And then 4K is not existing. So I had to in London. It's a funny story. So the cinema in Germany, the dome was built in Germany for like 100 million euros, like on the Volkswagen plant, like this big cube, like aesthetic building where you can walk into this cube and there's seating inside and the sound, and they just needed the film. So how do you do that? So the film was made out of 4 projectors. They had to fade into each other. Each projector had like 4K. So imagine in 2000, you literally have to create a spaceship, like to have this render power. Every editing change on 4K, it takes like 6 hours.
Right.
So we shot this around the world. I hired Tom Ackerman, who is the DP of Jumanji, for example, the first Jumanji. So he's a big expert on effects. So he was the director, I was the producer, and we shot this film for 1.5 years around the world. And created the first 360 dome movie. And we shot on IMAX, we shot on VistaVision, Panavision, 35 millimeter, all formats mixed. And then this whole thing got edited in my studio, which was where I had to install a replica of the big dome with the original projectors in order to see what I'm editing. So you see,
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, the time and
risk,
effort that had to go
another
into
big
that.
risk, and something which has never been done before. And I love to be on the edge, right, with that stuff, because everything gets too much.
Well, it speaks to your rebel, persona that you were talking about earlier,
And I don't even know that I'm going to get into rock and roll later. So because I'm not really a rock and roll fan.
No, so, you're not. That's interesting.
That's exactly, and that's comes later. So this was kind of like the masterpiece of branded entertainment. The film was about the vision of Volkswagen. It didn't have any cars in it, so it was a big version of that. What everybody's trying to do today, right? Like to get exposures through people you connect to, even influencers and stuff. People have nothing to do with your brand, but they talk about you credibly, etc. That was the first movement there. So. Right. So that took me moving that whole company into a partnership with Saatchi & Saatchi, the worldwide advertising agency, which I started their branded entertainment department. So I sold my company in there, and we started in Saatchi & Saatchi. I tried everything, tried to do this company outside the brands, with the brands, not with the brands, directly with the client. But this time I was in the agency, and I could use the agency basically to promote my vision of like the branded entertainment for our biggest clients, Toyota and T-Mobile.
So you literally leveraged, okay, that's so smart. So like, as you're trying to project to your clients what the vision is for where you want to take them, you use the resources internally to kind of help visually tell that story.
Yeah, exactly. And come up with concepts, where the existing clients of Saatchi & Saatchi, which were like they're traditional, they still do traditional campaigns, ads in cinemas or ads on television, we spend huge amount of money, have them invest into something else, have them start a band, I think one client, we tried to start a hip hop band with them, or the other Brazilian client, we did like a whole movie on a documentary on Brazil. We had Pelé in the film, soccer player, and it was more like we created a documentary. That documentary we gave for free, basically financed by the brand, gave for free to the TV stations, and in order to get advertising spots back from them, which we paid nothing for, instead of paying for all that stuff and just doing a 30-second commercial with Ridley Scott for $10 million, and then you pay $100 million media budget in Europe for this new brand. So we try to find new ways to communicate, like as I said before, and learning from businesses as well, which are restricted in advertising. So lots of events, lots of branded entertainment, lots of collaborations, and the first influencer campaigns as well. You call them then, okay, we need the celebrities in there. But I weaved in Pelé into this film because he would have never done an alcohol commercial, right? But Pelé he has to be in a documentary about Brazil. So he wanted to be in it. And this was all financed by that alcohol brand, and it was all in the press. And so we got the benefit having Pelé in this film about Brazil, sponsored by the alcohol brand, and it all came back to them. And then the footage they could always use in the trade shows, and it's like evergreen usage forever for this stuff. We create a whole image bank for them in Brazil with all the photos we did and all that stuff. So it was a big concept, and it worked well in for Saatchi. This is when
I want to just pause. It sounds like you take when you approach things, you really do things with a purpose. Right? Like it seems like nothing goes to waste in your process of kind of how you execute a strategy.
Exactly.
You're leveraging the resources internally. You're thinking about the content that you're capturing and creating, and you see that there's evergreen, content that has legs for longevity, right? So
longevity, and it never exactly.
Yeah.
You hit it on that, Kevin. This thing is, if you create that stuff, if you shoot a commercial and you pay for it, and it's and you pay somebody, so it's on somewhere where people don't watch it anyway, they're not interested. But if you create something which is interesting to watch, and then you make it as interesting as actually you competing with the entertainment business, and make something entertaining, and I like to watch that, and then you create something which lasts forever, and sometimes it gets better with age. Those photos, I mean, I was in London like 2 years ago, and this is like 15 years later or whatever, and they have sold already the company to Campari, and and they're still on the airport. I go in like London Heathrow, and there's like some ladies handing out some cachazas
Right.
from Sagachiba is the brand, and in the background, still my photos of the Brazilian jungle as like a backdrop, which they bought with the company, right? This part of the library. So this is 15 years later. Imagine.
Wow, that's
So
insane. Wow. But it makes so much sense. I mean, that jungle
exactly.
or that backdrop's not gonna change in 15 years. I mean,
No,
so
it only gets better.
it only gets
Only
better.
gets-
Exactly.
It only gets better. So that took me. So then was basically the explosion of around me happening the internet. So Facebook, MySpace first, then Facebook, then Google, Yahoo.
So that was in the 2002 to 2007 range. Yeah.
Exactly. So 2000 Saatchi is around 2005, like 2004, and we moved our company in there. And then I said, okay, we so excited by what's happening in the internet around us, and I came up with the idea of with my partners there in Saatchi to we got to have a tech company now because everybody's doing it, so we got to have a tech company. So we started this idea, basically a LinkedIn. LinkedIn was in the beginning then, and then we started, there must be a LinkedIn for creative people. And this was the concept, it was called talenthouse.com. It's still around. I'm one of the founders. I get to that how I left it. But the thing is, so we raised the money, exited Saatchi. I moved to Silicon Valley, Mountain View, next to Google, lived in this, I mean, coming from the heights of Paris, fashion photography.
And you made it. You made it because you started in Europe and now you got to the US. That was part of your
Finally,
plan.
that was
right?
the first thing. But I brought. The good thing is we raised the money in Europe. We took all the money, our millions of seed A round to Silicon Valley and started the company there. So that was,
wow.
And for me, this was an amazing learning. Like those people there. This is not the London advertising business, or this is not like the entertainment industry, which I left out. I mean, I was obviously involved always in entertainment projects, and I did my photography, and I was involved in music projects and so on. But so Silicon Valley is really about the focus and executing and having a plan and having a strategy. Not that other industries don't have that, but in Silicon Valley, it's just really hardcore. The focus is insane.
Sure.
And so I managed to enjoy that for 2 years and made a lot of friends there who I still have, and learned a lot. And I sold my shares in the company 2 years in, which was a great deal for me. And then I moved to Los Angeles. And here I was. So in LA basically was my final destination, really. And I started to look around for new opportunities. I wanted to be more entertainment, brand, technology, since that doesn't exist really. That combination alone, like,
it's very, very rare, right? Because I mean, they all intersect, but you yourself as a creative have to pull those things together. They're not like all kind of encompassing.
They should. And so we're part of like a bunch of startups, invested in a bunch of companies, always like with the brand, technology, and the advertising technology and entertainment business. So those three things. So.
And what year was this, Dre?
This is like now 2010 or something, right? Like 2011. And so trying to find always trying to find the next big thing. And what happened is like an interesting thing happened. Somebody called me from Silicon Valley again. And so I was into filmmaking and collaborated with lots of entertainment projects, learned a lot about e-commerce. At some point we had a startup where we were running the whole jessicasimpson.com. So I went very much knowledgeable into e-commerce business. How to get the flow right, etc. How to build those platforms, and build a nice team in LA with that knowledge, and always bring in all my experience from all angles, which was very beneficial because the PR angle of it and everything, like in one brain is better than when just 15 departments come together and trying to communicate. And so I try to always look at it like that. So that was a great experience. And then we're now where are we now? We're now at the point.
2010, you said,
Now it gets super interesting. So 2014 around, I get a call from Silicon Valley from a user experience company called Idean, and this is my favorite. Actually, funny enough, my favorite part of it. So I didn't even know what that means. UX.
It's user experience, right?
yeah, but you know what is that like, and how, what role does it play, and so on. And then I got into it. They wanted to do a film about to explain their clients what they do, because it's kind of very abstract. So like hire a UX company, pay $1 million for like a architectural plan for an app, you know, like
Right. So for those for those listening, a UX developer would be one who makes an app very seamless to use, right? Like
exactly.
the
Let's call it
functionality,
frictionless.
right,
Frictionless.
right.
So what happened is, so long story short, I became part of the company. I invested a little bit. I became partner in it, and we started building it. It was an original company which was started in Finland in 1990, and they went in Finland as far as they could go, and then the CEO decided to move to Silicon Valley and start there. And the timing was amazing because, you know, after the iPhone came out and the destruction of the Finnish company Nokia, basically through the iPhone, which they've never had thought about, again, with their arrogance, they got destroyed by a great user experience. You could buy the iPhone,
right,
and there's not even a manual comes with it because it's so easy to use. It doesn't need a manual.
And now today the newer ones, they don't even have a button. Isn't that amazing?
And that is a job for a user experience company. This could be the job can be for us when we were there, like the Apple comes to us and said, get rid of the button. And get rid of the button, the last button. That's a job. That's a multi-million-dollar job, right? So it's like, sounds funny, just take it away. But how do you do it?
Right.
And this is exactly what is the fascinating thing about this user experiential business. So I become very close. We built this company within 3 years to 300 people around the state, 5 offices, Austin, Texas as well, nice office. And so I love working for the biggest brands in the world, HP, Samsung, Apple.
Wow.
Everybody you could imagine, even IBM. We started the Texas office for IBM because they have their creative hub there. So we worked on health applications for Watson, and like hyper complicated stuff which had to explain to the team alone for weeks until they understood what it was about and what they were about to do. So or what had to deliver. So I got very much involved into this, and I ran the LA studio for IDN and became their chief creative officer as well. And so we were doing films then about like those personas and the experience, and
it's like the testimonial films, right? Of like how the technology has helped or enabled a couple or an individual, right?
Yeah, Kevin even like took this to a step further. So for example, a client like Hitachi, I know it's a Japanese company.
Right.
So they had the vision. Okay, we did a project for them on UX and then they said, hey, we have this big conference for all our investors every year. What do we show them? You know, then well, you want to show them like this futuristic film where we look at the future. We do some future casting with our people and in this workshop, and we think about where the world will go in the next 3 or 10 years.
Wow.
And then we'll make a futuristic movie about that. And you can show this, the CEO can show this before his speech. So stuff like this we did.
I'm very familiar with that content because prior to me launching this podcast, the 10 years before that, I worked at large companies like Dell, Sabre, AT&T. And I know exactly what you say, because you go to those big, like, Mobile World Congress, or whatever they are, right? The major trade show events, and then, or even Dell World, or like if the company itself is hosting their customer event. And at the beginning of the event, they have their executive leadership team that actually like will run through like, you know, their business objectives for the year or what they're planning to roll out. And when at that moment is where you step in, because you've already done the work to basically storyboard and future cast these scenes and this content for it to play. And I'll tell you what, people listening, those films are incredible, man. Like they are top notch, because to your point, you're working with a large industry leading technology company who basically serves the future, right? And so you really got to nail it when it comes to the visual production of those videos.
And happy if you want to have some shots of that. I mean, this is like so we did the first one I did again with Tom Ackerman. I brought Tom Ackerman back out of retirement, basically. Like, it was like, and he did with me as a co-directing job. We shot this all in Barcelona, because Barcelona, the buildings, you might know, like, so futuristic, and it was all based in Barcelona. And
great idea. Yeah, Barcelona has the very unique
exactly.
infrastructure, right? Yeah.
So it was Bitcoin and blockchain and like wireless charging of cars while they're driving around and all that kind of stuff. You know, like, it's great. So I have this film. If you want to edit it in or whatever, like, you can show little pieces of it. It's a cool thing to see. And then the last one we did here in the desert in California was the utopian city, which the blackout, you know, because too much power is used and there's a blackout in the city, and how do you manage the new demand of electric cars and in the future on the power
on the grid,
on the grid, exactly. So, and all that stuff is in there. The only thing we didn't think about, and I think it came up in one meeting, was what happens if a freaking worldwide pandemic happens in a virus? So that cannot happen. You know, like.
Well, there's a lot of existing footage for you to pull from now.
Exactly.
If you need to.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, so we had to. It was brought up and it was shut down kind of by us ourselves. You know, we were creating that. This is like a 7-minute film, so we left the virus out,
right?
And because nobody could imagine them, right? So that we did, and so I learned so much with the experiential. With UX, then became for me at some point, and I say it in our later Jushi films and in the opening about the brands. So for me, the experience then became the brand. It was before it was something else. It was that brand entertainment, but we had brand entertainment then when this really, the experience equals the brand. Because today it's everything about the experience. I mean, you go to a simple example, you go to an app of Delta Airlines or whoever, like, I'm just saying Delta.
Sure.
And if it's a great experience, you have immediately like you say, oh, this is a great airline, you know, this is a great airline. You haven't even been on the plane yet.
Right.
But already.
And, you know, to your point, it's a hit or miss, right? Because if they have that good experience, more than likely they'll return. But if they have a bad experience, it's going to be really, really hard to retain that person again.
They probably never go. There could be the greatest airlines, they could have the best service, the best food, but if that app part, then I'm not just blaming on the app, but on the app part is not working, then already I'd rather go to United. It's easier. After all these films, while I'm doing this, I'm becoming this, say, the rock and roll photographer, because I start to collaborate with a band called the Queens of the Stone Age.
Sure.
With good friends of mine, and this lead singer Josh Homme is like, we've been collaborating now the last 6 years on. I do everything visual for Queens of the Stone Age is out there, and that led me to work now for Foo Fighters and Arctic Monkeys and bands like that.
I saw an interview with Josh, and he said that you, if there's a problem, well, problem has a problem because you're solving it.
That's great. Yeah, that's this British TV show. Exactly. Like, there's a problem. The problem has a problem, right?
That's right.
So exactly. So how I got to Jushi in the end. So imagine now I'm branding, I'm entertainment, I'm the rock and roll. I have all this. I have the celebrity connection. I'm in Hollywood. I have all these things you would need, but nobody knows that you need it, right?
Right.
Because how can you even tell that story without us talking for half an hour already? So I was never in cannabis. So I smoked cannabis with 18, and I kind of, it was. Of course, there's a dealer that gives you the stuff where you smoke it and then you get tired or whatever. You don't know, no control, you don't know what it is, right? So that was it for me. I'm like was more like an alcohol guy. And 20 years ago, I didn't even drink alcohol anymore. So I do nothing. So I went to, I basically went to a shoot somewhere in Silicon Valley. Les Claypool from Primus. It was part of the Desert Sessions, now Grammy Award-winning Desert Sessions album. And I'm driving through Silicon Valley. It reminds me, like, okay, this I used to live here, fun. And a day before, I saw my first like cannabis product on a table. An artist friend of mine had this box on the table, like looked like a cigarette box, and it said Master Leaf, and it looked very sexy. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is my brand, Andreas. And I said, what kind of brand is it? It's like, this is my pre-roll cannabis. And I say, seriously, you can do this? Like, I'm in California with it. And I don't know anything about it.
Right.
So then I got intrigued, and long story short, I got really interested. Why don't we do we have the stoner rock band here on our hands? Why don't we do a product with Queens of the Stone Age. And then I was on the quest, and I spoke to Josh. Josh was excited. And I was on the quest, basically finding the right partner to do this. And in Silicon Valley, while I was driving there, I'm calling my friend, an old friend in Singapore, and who is now as well, he's one of the investors of Jushi. And he tells me, well, you should talk to those guys. They like coming up like Jushi. They have retail and MSO and vertically integrated. No idea what that means. And all that. Oh, great. So we had a call with one of Eric Mauf, the president of Jushi, and then we basically was like falling in love right away. And then we started with my new agency, which after ID was done, we sold it to a French company. I had my own little new agency now. So we started working,
I want to make sure I got it clear. So when you were talking with the stoner rock bands, you again, like going back to your kind of business strategy mindset, you thought, okay, how can I incorporate a well-established brand, right, in the cannabis space with this particular rock band? And Jushi is where you stumbled upon.
Exactly. That's the funny story. So Jushi I stumbled upon others, but Jushi was immediately like through leadership with Jim Cacioppo, and I met them all, and Eric Mauf. They were kind of like, they got it, even coming from, as well, them from a different industry, right? From the more finance industry, but they got it. Well, there's something there. So we want to talk to Dre. So I went to Boca, we had meetings, and then I said, well, this company really, like, this is paid for, we should collaborate, because the experience, you cannot do advertising. All I did in my life is like kind of prepares for this moment, because you cannot even do advertising if you don't have you can do other stuff, but that stuff has to be really worked out and clever in order to get traction, right? And so we started to work together.
You must have been like the luckiest thing to fall into the, like, I mean, like, you're such an asset to bring that kind of, that value add to the company. So for you just kind of knocking on the door at first to talk about some type of partnership or collaboration, they said, wait, this guy really knows what he's doing on this side of the house. Maybe we bring him in as a team member.
Yeah,
right?
What we did is basically on both sides, we started dating, as I call it, like in Segredo. So like we start dating before we get married.
Courtship.
So we were working like together like for a year on various projects, and we did, everything starts with me now is always the research. And we did a big research project for Jushi on retail of cannabis in California, Southern California. And that gave me, of course, so much information, intel, and excitement. Like I said, actually, we got to get into this business. This is so exciting.
What did you find out? Would you find out that it was super like hyper brand competitive? Like in California?
We did the retail focus. We're still pulling from that. This interesting thing is so simple things like don't get your stores too big. People want smaller stores. How people moving through the stores, what are they expecting? Like how they, it always gets new customers. You have to kind of, education is very important. How do you educate them? What do they want to be educated about? Like, what are they interested in? What holds them back to go into dispensaries? Then we observe, we have observational research techniques where we just observe. We don't ask them questions. We're observing. So you see like how people go into dispensaries and when they come together, they stick together. They're moving as a little pod around together. So you gotta, when you know all those things, you can actually cater for that, right? It goes very detailed. And later we started to implement later, like in the last year, like we implement all those learnings into our new retail stores and the architectural plans and how you flow through retail, and how the online works together with the retail as a lead creator kind of, and all that stuff. And we're still using that today, but this was our first project. And then like just before COVID, like in February 2020, we signed our deal. So I always come with a whole team. And so I bring my whole team, like it's like 3 people, Benjamin McAllister, who is doing all the digital online now in Jushi, and the professor, we call him, Julian Scarf, who is a professor at the Arts Center in Pasadena, he teaches user experience. So he wasn't my best guy in the past in user experience. So he does now all our research. He did the original research project. So this is the team. The 3 of us came in, and then we built from there our team. We basically were just us in the beginning, and then we kind of hired ours and repurposed a lot of great people from the organization already. Now, Jushi now today is like nearly 800 people already. And when I joined, we were like, I think 40 or something.
Yeah,
So
I've just seen so many like press releases talking about the expansions. I know
yeah,
that they just acquired Delizzo in Virginia and closing an acquisition in Ohio coming up. So
yeah.
there's a lot of great stuff in terms of growth and expansion for the company. So it's a great time to be there, it seems like.
It is a great time, and the thing is, my expertise obviously is like I can say freely, it's like basically you don't find this character a lot like me, because having touched so many things, and if you have like, if you do the traditional hire for like you looking for a CMO or creative director, uh, we always, like we always, the philosophy is the money has to go on the screen, and we try to do stuff in house. Yeah, we try to build the teams, and I'm not calling a film company when I do a film about the company. We do it ourselves, right? We can do it. So we build our own technology platforms. We work together with like Jane, those companies, and Headset and Springbig, where we as partners. I don't consider them vendors, they're my partners. I'm building, improving their platform. They give input into our platform. We build this together. And I said this in an interview the other day. I think it was a cool thing. Like, you can compare Jushi with like a Tesla these days. Today you can buy like it's buy versus build. You call it in Silicon Valley. You find the best partners like Jane, Headset, thing, and they're like the Mercedes. It's like the gearbox of Tesla. It comes from Mercedes, right? So I get the Mercedes, but I have to build the brain around it. So I have to take Jane, and then I have to have my own brain and my own flow and my whole user experience in order to get to Jane. And if this is effective, then I do a sell. So
That
that
is
is
that is the right way to look at it, and especially now with the timing, right? Because as this industry continues to burgeon and get bigger and grow, like the solidifying of the important partnerships needs to take place now, right? And
yeah,
and you're doing just that. You talk about iHeart Jane, big technology platform, basically like the Amazon of cannabis is
yes,
really what they're
yes,
building. And
yeah,
Headset IO, I know that they're a big data insights
yeah.
company, right?
Yeah, very
So
important. I mean, we always say, like this sounds so. I'm the creative guy, and he makes pretty pictures and all that. But if we don't deliver like dollars as well, like we're just the pretty guys with the pretty pictures, but nobody takes us serious. So what we did is in Kevin so we started in February, and in April we were ready to launch our first e-commerce platform. And e-commerce in cannabis is obviously, I call it e-commerce, but it's basically you pre-order and then you
right.
have to pick up at the store. But so when we launched on the 27th of April 2020, the pandemic is like in one month old and everybody's insecure about it, but we're launching online against everybody's recommendation again, because now it's like online is not really possible in Pennsylvania, our biggest market. It's not okay. The POS systems don't work. Talk to each other.
Which doesn't make sense to me, because the future, of course, is going to be, even without the regulations, the industry will get to that point, which I
Exactly.
never got. So, but go ahead, continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so we launched this, and then I've never seen anything like this, Kevin. Like, day one, we launching this e-commerce store. Day one it made $27,000, and that was like, what, 20? Yeah, and maybe you've seen like people launching. If I launched my like gallery or my fashion brand, I'm not gonna sell $30,000 to day one out of nowhere.
Right. Right.
So that's unheard of. So today we have an average day of over $450,000 a day online,
Wow.
and this is like, obviously it's all public knowledge, and our run rate of our online platform is over $160 million. So not only the pretty pictures or the nice campaigns or like the brands we do and all that, but as well, like, we deliver money every day. We call it the online store is our biggest store, and this is my team is running this, and from that comes everything. There comes all the data, there comes the relationship with Headset or with Jane. We get all the data. Now we very data rich. We can make our decisions, like what we're launching in terms of brands, or like or even like campaigns or whatever we do on an IR or like in investor campaigns or the films we do, all based on data. And we're looking at the data, we research it very carefully with our team, right? We have the research team, like with the professor, and the professor is telling us if the packaging is the right thing, if everything is consumer tested. And that led, for example, again, on the next success we had was we had a Nevada launch of our brand the bank, which is our flower brand, main flower brand.
Right.
And this went out of the gate in certain categories #1 in Nevada as a flower brand, and with no advertising. It's just great. I think it's great packaging. It looks cool. It feels right, and it was researched, so we knew this is people will relate to it, and it's not big magic, but it was done the right way, and it pays off in the end. So that was, I mean, you can call it lucky, but it's really not. It wasn't. It's just a method,
It's not luck because, like you said, I mean, that data collection, like having the e-commerce in place, just to your point, and it's a great point, is that it gives you the ability to collect data to make informed decisions, right?
Exactly.
And that can kind of get misconstrued from people that don't really understand data and tracking and whatnot. It's not that we're using, like when you hear about what Facebook does or what Facebook's third-party agencies do, right? It's they did the shady stuff. They sold their data.
Of course. You cannot do this in the health in the patients.
You can't do it, right? And so, but what the savvy companies are doing is they're looking at these data sets, they're figuring out who their customers are, and then they're implementing decisions that cater to that particular customer better, right? It's just trying to improve the experience. And so I think that, from what I've gathered, I know that there are cannabis companies doing it, but I don't know if there's cannabis companies doing it as diligently and kind of hyper focused as you guys are. It sounds like
I don't know, but I mean, we're looking around. We have very good competitors out there. We're really big fans of GTI.
Green Thumb.
We were always big fans of them. We're always looking at what they're doing and how they did it. They kind of like two and a half years ahead of us, kind of, I think. And we're always looking at them, and we're looking at the others. You look at stuff, what they do right, and then you take it on and trying to make it even better.
Right.
And that works. And as well, like, so for retail, like, you gotta constantly keep up with it. You research, and you have to already pre-plan. Now we have been trapped for like a year, and it's like, everybody, don't go to the dispensary, don't touch anything, get them in and out as fast as you can. What we're doing now is it's already coming. Like we will I call it the experiential expansion, and that will introduce like partnerships with we have partnerships coming up with brands like my friend Colin Hanks, who has a bandana line that's called the Hanks Kerchiefs.
White boy summer, Colin Hanks.
Exactly. So he's gonna come, and we're gonna sell his fun. It's nothing to do with cannabis. He's not even a cannabis guy, but he likes our philosophy, he likes our stores, how they look. They look very cool, our stores, like, all this brushed metal, dark wood, and nice LED lighting. Mm-hmm. And so his product fits into our store, and we'll be the first product to carry his exclusive line of bandanas, for example. And that's like that's kind of puts like our retail beyond kind of just cannabis thing. It's
a new audience. It's a new audience. It's his audience, right? Yeah.
It's a new retail. You can call it the retail scene. I always say it's like creating that retail scene. Like having at some point in the future, you can have a coffee there, and you talk to like-minded people, and you see other products, and you can buy all kinds of stuff in there. And we start our own candle line, so we expanding basically as well to the experience when you walk in the store, to our own custom scent, so you walk in and it feels like, there's hotels like SLS Hotel or something. You walk in, they have always the same smell.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They burn those candles, and you kind of feel, it smells like SLS Hotel. So we do the same thing with Beyond Hello. So it's kind of, we have a custom scent we create in Joshua Tree with a very small boutique candle company there, and they're shipping, and they're like our partners. And it's very, very good to help us, like to not work with like, okay, I do a candle brand now, and I'm going to call like the biggest candle maker in China and buy some candles. We went to the desert. They have their little factories in a ship container, which is, and they're making those candles, and we sell those candles in all our stores now where we can sell them, and they go very well, and they're beautiful, and they organic and smell great, and we were part of creating the scent ourselves. So it's fantastic. So all those stories, they're important for like the future of retail, I think, specifically in that genre, which will grow and become more mainstream, at some point. And that's what we're ramping up for on all levels, right? From online to real brick and mortar.
Yeah, and all those little details matter. I mean,
Yeah,
from the outset, from someone just listening, they may think no, but like as a customer that likes to shop at Jushi, they know what to expect, when it comes to smell, the aesthetics, the look, the design.
yeah.
That's
People
why they
care.
come back, right? I mean, it's got to be consistent. Uh,
Exactly.
and speaking of consistency and like the future of immersive experiences when it comes to, actually walking into a dispensary, like how do you see this playing out? So we talked about how the pandemic has kind of shifted the focus of, like, you kind of mentioned, get them in, get them out. People don't want to be touching things. We're
Yeah,
still getting vaccinated, right? But so do you see that we're kind of in this weird period where we kind of have to operate as things are now, but then you're gonna really bet big on the in-person immersive experience in the future? Like how is that all gonna shake out? What do you think in terms of
100%.
actually physical store?
Absolutely. We already have, we've built our store for that already. First of all, like we're building the stores for, we're in some medical markets, which will turn at some point recreational. So we have to already, from an architectural point of view and like layout point of view, design point of view, we're already trying to merge together the pharmacy, the white coat with the hipster bartender, right? So we already have that even in Pennsylvania. So it's already our concept. We have the white coats, the serious consultants and pharmacists and medical, but we have
Mm-hmm.
as well like super cool environment. So we're building for the future, right? And at some point when this is changing, then you have like to switch over to more like it's not difficult to switch. You're already creating basically as much as you allowed to these situations, and the vibe. And in the recreational markets, we would go full towards that, and you have to get ready for that, where people will want to spend more time in the stores. They will want to be educated. They will talk still to people who like know what they talk about from an education and medical point of view, but as well like the hipster, like I want some great weed, right? There has to be all something for everybody and casual. And so we're training our staff like that. They're all like prepared for that. They have both in them, even in the recreational markets. And then we're trying to do this kind of new things, these new collaborations, which transports us to the retail scene, where it becomes a lifestyle to go to a cannabis dispensary, and not like you like feel like you get arrested. Even some, like you go in there, the first thing you see is the security guard, and
Right.
maybe the whole rest of the experience is great, but that security guard is the first thing you see and the first person you talk to, and you get kind of scared. If it's not the right experience, it's scary.
Right,
And
especially as a first-time consumer, you don't want to be walking through like a metal detector or something.
exactly. And this is like, Kevin, like this why you bring like this is it's a lot of work. So like little steps like bringing our security in-house, having control of that, training them well, like making them part of the family, instead of just having an outside company sending every other day another person who is like doesn't know what it's about, and they're the first thing you meet. And that's stuff, like you're dealing in this industry with. You have to do big steps for that, and then it has to be secure, it has to be professional, but it has to be as well this experience. It has to be a great experience, and that's those little things. The security is a big part of it, and this is what we're
Right.
working on. We have to hire our own people, and then you have to, for me, we're like 30-40 people more only in Pennsylvania, and you have to train them, and they have to come beyond hello and all that. So this is you can see this is a lot of work. Not only like make a nice store, and like it's all about the people and how those people are like educated and trained, and how we choose them. It's really like it's a never-ending journey, right? I guess in the bubble, because
Mhm.
if you're in the bubble, I always say you cannot compare it with the outside world. There's its own rules and its own moves, and I was kind of coming. My whole life was kind of made for this, because there's a there's a thing you have to move around all this, like the Brazilians play soccer, right? They
Right.
go around the problem all the time, like they dance around it and come back to it, and then make the goal. So this is how this works. They call it Jenga in Brazil. So you gotta have the Jenga
Yeah.
in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, there's no other industry that demands more problem solving, I'd say, on a daily basis than cannabis, right? I mean, it's just
No,
every aspect, and it's ever changing. It doesn't settle. Everything's new or evolving, and
yeah,
so yeah.
it's a puzzle, where the puzzle pieces change while you're doing the puzzle. all the time, right?
Right.
That's how Josh Homme would have said it.
I like that. Josh is quotable, man. He's got some
Oh,
bars.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, as well, he says one great one in the movie I did with him, like American Valhalla, which is a movie I did on the last Iggy Pop record with Josh together as a co-director. He says, we're moving at the speed of inspiration. We're moving at the speed of inspiration. So this is very
Wow.
cannabis, right? Like move at the speed of inspiration, and you move at the speed of opportunity. So you
Right.
gotta stop, go. Then timing is everything, right? So if something you said yesterday might be possible today, or something you did yesterday might not be possible today, and nobody have to find another way to do it. And you have to be prepared for it already. Otherwise, you get lost or left back. So it's a constant multi-level dance, right? You have to do. And this is made for me, this stuff. I mean, I'm enjoying it so much. I cannot you might come across here my enthusiasm about it.
Oh, I can tell. I was gonna say for those just listening, like Dre is like he's like so excited he's gonna come out of his chair, you know, and I can see the passion that you have. It's awesome, man. And so that's what I want to ask you next is, so like pull out your crystal ball, right? If you were to predict the future based on all of your experience within advertising, branding, entertainment, technology, photography,
Yeah.
where do you see the cannabis industry when it relates to immersive experiences?
And that's interesting, immersive experiences. So you mean like on a big level, or like more like, I mean, when I think immersive experiences, I think immediately about walking into Planet 13 in Vegas.
So that, yes. So like examples like how people can either purchase or experience what they're buying and learn about it, whether it be like a Planet 13 example or even online, you know?
Yeah. So it's really you have to always not forget the education is key, and the education has to be playful, as you say, immersive experience. It has to be effortless but efficient. And this is, I think, the key. The education is everything, and it has to be done in a way. It's not like I'm telling you, you can do it with the medical. We have various ways to do it. We have the medical way. We bring in famous doctors and people who talk about this. You know, you can talk to them, or like you have an online portal where you can actually ask questions. So you get answer from really somebody really with a credibility behind it. Or you have to do really like those campaigns, or even like I could see you doing a movie like which actually tells a story, but you learn from that story how good this product is, what this product is about, what good this can do. You know, we comparing, like I compare sometimes cannabis with music, because I wasn't a user at all, as I said. And then from the day one, Kevin, I started with Jushi. Even before, I used cannabis every night. I do other products, and I test them and I experience them. I know what the doses is, and so I'm totally immersed in this. So, and only then I can actually tell other people how this can have an impact on your health, how this can have an impact on your fun factor, on your focus, on your creativity, on your work, on your workouts, all that stuff. I mean, there's so much to educate about. And that has to be, I think that's the responsibility of not only of Jushi. It's like, this should be something we can do all together, all the big players who have the financial powers to actually produce more of that stuff, where you actually, people can learn and people can get guided, not necessarily like an ad for Jushi, an ad for cannabis. You know, this is what needs to be done. And I think this, there's a lot of concepts I'm looking at already to excite others to join into that, you know, because it's bigger than only one company, and it will be for the benefit of all the players, and all the, more important, all the people who in the future can consume it, because it has been demonized so long. People don't know about it. They think it's like it's a bad thing, but it has so many positive aspects to it. I sometimes have to compare it. You have to compare it with music nearly, because it has an effect on, everybody is affected by it differently, right? And everybody feels it differently. So it's art. This plant is art, and I'm a big fan of this plant. And I didn't know anything about it before, but I did like 1 year of so much study. I probably it's like 10 years worth of product.
You
But
really immersed yourself there, right?
Yeah, no, you have to do it. You know, when I was asked to do like a documentary on the highest jump in the world, jumping from a balloon like higher than the Red Bull guys did. And the first thing I had to do is I had to go up with the guys and jump out of the plane with them and see how this feels, right? And I did films about jet fighters in Sweden. The first thing, if you do a film about a jet fighter, you have to learn how to fly a jet fighter. Otherwise, you cannot make the movie. So this is the same thing. Like you have to. It's like method acting nearly. You know, you go into something and you become it. And if you don't do that, I mean, it's not a job for me, obviously. Like this is like this turns into a lifestyle, turns into a mission, and solving the puzzle, the big puzzle, which is be ever changing. Hopefully, it doesn't change this ever, and we never finish it because it's so exciting.
Right. It's so exciting. And Dre, it's like music to my ears hearing you talk about like your experience with the plant and how you kind of want to make it your mission, not just for Jushi, but for an industry as a whole. To educate, and who better to lead that effort, Dre, than someone like you who has such an amazing background telling those types of stories. So I'll just tell you right now, man, I'll raise my hand any way that Cannabinoid Connect can be involved in that industry effort. Like,
thank you, man.
Just let me know, and I'm game. Like whatever you need, we're in for it, because that's my mission.
It was a wonderful session, man. Because for me, it's like nearly like sitting with a psychiatrist. Like you can let out all your let it all out, right? Like it's fantastic.
That's what I want to do. I want to be here to have the guest enjoy it and also add value to our listeners, which we clearly did today, Dre. Of course, just hearing your background and all the amazing things you've done, but also how you're applying your experience into cannabis, because as we know, this is an ever evolving, growing industry, and more and more it's going to become more professional, more innovative, more technologically advanced. And so, hey, we're happy to have guys like you that are leading the forefront on those
and for
efforts.
everybody, just the last thing, I mean, there's so much facets of the business, from, as you just said, the growing, the extraction techniques, the chemical, they create the kitchens, the edibles, the chocolates, the retail, the experiences, the advertising about it. There's so many jobs coming, exciting jobs, and there's still you can do whatever you want there, you know, like, because it's nobody tells you, okay, that, I mean, everybody tells you cannot do that, but in the end, you can just create a product, launch it, and it's like nothing's going to stop you. And it's in the bubble, and the bubble at some point is going to open up for more. And I can only invite everybody who should come in the bubble now. It's like the right time to come in it, right?
Amen to that, my man. I could say it better myself. Yep. And that's the perfect way to end it. Dre, again, I want to thank you so much. Let's definitely have you back on again, man.
Thank you, man.
You know, as you do more things and you launch that industry effort, want to have you back on and talk about it. So,
and you're doing a great interview. Make people very comfortable, and like you.
Awesome.
Cool,
well,
man.
Thank you so much for your feedback, man. And we'll run it back. And thank you all for listening. Okay.
Super. Thank you, guys.
Bye.